A turtle was found, scratching at a beach house door. Then they saw the tide coming. The first scratch at the door came just before dawn, when the beach was still gray and the sky over Cape Mariner had only begun to pale behind the clouds. Clara Monroe heard it from the kitchen, where she stood barefoot on the cool tile floor, waiting for coffee to brew, and watching rain slide down the windows in thin silver lines. At first, she thought it was a branch blown against the porch by the wind. The old beach house made all kinds of noises during storms. Wooden beams groaned, screen doors rattled, sand tapped against the siding like fingernails. Then the sound came again. Scrape, pause, scrape, scrape. Clara turned toward the back door. The beach house faced the ocean, its rear deck built over a stretch of dune grass that led down to the sand. The house had belonged to her grandparents, then her parents, and now to Clara and her younger brother, Ryan, though neither of them had decided what to do with it. Their mother had died 6 months earlier, and the house had become one more thing grief had left behind for them to sort through. Old furniture, salt-stained windows, family photographs, and arguments about whether keeping memories was the same as keeping a life. Ryan wanted to sell. Clara couldn't bear the thought. She had come down for the weekend to begin boxing up the bedrooms. Ryan was supposed to arrive later that morning with his wife and their 10-year-old son, Noah. Clara had told herself she would be practical. She had told herself she would not cry over chipped mugs, seashell jars, or the faded blue curtains their mother had sewn by hand. Then something scratched at the door again. Scrape, scrape. Clara set down her coffee cup and moved closer. Through the glass, she saw a shape on the porch. At first, her sleepy mind could not make sense of it. It was low, dark, and round, sitting just outside the door in the rain. It moved slowly, painfully, dragging itself forward 1 inch at a time. One front flipper lifted and scraped against the lower wooden panel. Scrape. Clara gasped. It was a sea turtle, a large one. Not enormous like the old loggerheads she had seen nesting on the beach when she was a child, but big enough that its shell nearly filled the width of the mat. Rainwater glistened across its dark carapace. Sand clung to its head and flippers. Its eyes were open, black and shining, and it seemed to be looking straight through the glass at her. For several seconds, Clara did not move. Sea turtles did not come onto porches. They did not scratch at doors. They came ashore to nest, then returned to the ocean. If they stranded on the beach, they needed help. If they reached a house, something was badly wrong. "Oh my God," Clara whispered. The turtle scraped at the door again. Not hard, not frantic, but persistent. Clara grabbed her phone from the counter and called the Cape Mariner Sea Turtle Rescue Hotline, a number taped to the refrigerator from years ago when her mother volunteered during nesting season. She was half afraid the number would no longer work. A woman answered on the second ring. "Sea turtle response, this is Maya." "There's a turtle on my porch," Clara said, and immediately felt ridiculous. There was a brief silence. "On your porch?" "Yes, at the back door. It's scratching." The woman's tone changed. "Where are you located?" 32 Pelican Row, the old Monroe house near South Dune." "Do not try to move it. Do not push it back to the water. Keep dogs and people away. Is it injured?" "I don't know. It looks exhausted. It came all the way up the dune." "Is the tide high?" Clara looked through the rain-streaked window toward the beach. The ocean looked much closer than it should. The tide was coming in fast, pushed by the lingering storm offshore. Waves surged high onto the sand, collapsing in white sheets and rushing toward the dunes. The beach was narrow at the best of times, but this morning the water was already halfway up the slope. "Yes," Clara said slowly. "Very high." Maya's voice sharpened. "I'm sending a team now. Stay where you are. Can you see any turtle tracks behind it?" Clara looked past the porch. A wide, uneven track curved through the wet sand below the deck, but instead of leading straight from the water to the house, it seemed to come from farther down the beach. The mark was broken in places where rain had softened the sand. "Yes, it came from the south, I think, along the dune." "Along the dune?" Maya repeated. Not straight up from the ocean, sideways. Another pause. Is it looking toward anything? Clara looked at the turtle. The turtle had turned its head away from the door, toward the beach, toward the south end of the dune line. Then it looked back at Clara. Clara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. It keeps looking down the beach, she said. Maya's voice became very calm. Clara, listen to me. It may have nested nearby. With this tide, nests can flood. We're on the way. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Nested. Eggs. The turtle scraped once more against the door. Clara crouched on the other side of the glass. I see you, she whispered. I'm listening. The turtle blinked slowly. Then it began turning away from the door. By the time Ryan arrived 40 minutes later, the scene looked like something from a dream. Rain still fell in thin, wind-blown sheets. Clara stood on the back deck in a yellow raincoat, hair plastered to her cheeks, holding an umbrella she had forgotten to open. The sea turtle remained near the door, but now she had shifted toward the steps, head angled toward the beach. Two rescue volunteers in waterproof gear knelt several feet away, watching carefully but not touching. A white rescue truck was parked crookedly in the driveway. Ryan came running around the side of the house with Noah close behind him. What happened? Ryan shouted. Clara turned. Don't come too close. Noah stopped so abruptly he nearly slipped. His eyes went wide. Is that a turtle? Yes, Clara said. Ryan stared at it. How did it get onto the porch? She came to the door. Ryan looked at Clara as if she had not slept enough. The turtle came to the door. She was scratching. Noah whispered, That's amazing. One of the rescuers, a tall woman in her 30s with braided hair tucked beneath her hood, stood and approached. I'm Maya. We need everyone to stay calm and behind us. Ryan nodded automatically. Is it hurt? Exhausted. Maybe scraped from the deck steps, but that may not be the main problem. The second rescuer, an older man named Luis, was following the track through the wet sand below. He moved slowly, studying the marks as waves hammered closer to the dunes. Maya glanced at the ocean. We're running out of beach. Clara followed her gaze. The tide had climbed higher, much higher. The storm surge was pushing water across the flat sand now, sending long tongues of foam toward the base of the dunes. Near the south end of the beach, where the sand curved around a low point, waves were already breaking against the dune face. Luis called from below. Maya? His voice cut through the rain. Maya turned. Luis pointed toward the south dune. Clara felt the turtle shift beside her. The animal lifted her head. Maya ran down the steps, keeping distance from the turtle's front. Clara, Ryan, and Noah followed only as far as the deck railing. What is it? Clara called. Luis crouched beside a disturbed patch of sand near the dune grass. At first, Clara could not see anything except storm debris, seaweed, broken shells, driftwood, plastic rope. Then she noticed a shallow depression in the sand, a nest site. The turtle tracks led there, circled, then continued toward the house. Maya knelt beside Luis. The water surged closer. Luis dug carefully with gloved hands. After several seconds, his face changed. Egg chamber, he said, and it's flooding. The turtle on the porch made a low, breathy sound. Noah gripped the railing. Her babies. Maya looked back at the house, then at the incoming tide. Not babies yet, she said. Eggs, but yes. Another wave pushed across the sand and reached the lower edge of the nest depression. The rescue shifted instantly. Sea turtle nests were protected. In normal conditions, rescuers did not interfere unless necessary, but storm tides could drown eggs if the nest chamber flooded for too long. Moving a nest was a last resort, done carefully with permits and exact protocols. The team had authority during emergencies, but time was brutally short. Maya spoke into her radio. Confirmed nest at South Dune, active flooding. Need relocation kit from truck. Approximately unknown clutch size. Adult female still present near structure, exhausted. Luis began placing markers around the nest. Ryan turned to Clara. "What do we do?" Clara looked at the turtle. The animal had stopped trying to move now. She rested near the porch steps, her shell slick with rain, eyes still turned toward the nest. She had crawled from the water, laid her eggs, and somehow, instead of returning to the ocean, traveled along the dune to the nearest house, to Clara's door. Because the tide was coming in, because the nest was in danger. Clara knew scientists might explain it differently: disorientation from stormlight, exhaustion, instinct misfiring, coincidence. But in that moment, with waves reaching for the nest and the turtle staring toward the people digging in the sand, Clara couldn't make herself believe it was meaningless. "She brought us there," Noah whispered. Ryan did not correct him. The relocation kit came from the truck, buckets lined with clean sand, gloves, measuring tools, a GPS marker, flags, and forms that had to be filled out even in the rain because conservation work was part miracle, part paperwork. Maya and Luis worked with extraordinary care. Sea turtle eggs could not be rotated carelessly. Each one had to be lifted gently, kept in orientation, and placed into the relocation bucket, in order from top to bottom so they could be reburied properly in a safer place above the storm line. Clara had volunteered with her mother as a teenager, but never during an emergency relocation. She remembered standing beside her mother on warm summer nights, watching nesting females under red-filtered lights, listening as her mother whispered, "Always respect the distance. They are doing something ancient." Now that ancient thing was unfolding in crisis. Maya dug into the nest chamber with both hands. The first egg appeared, small, white, perfect. Noah gasped. "It looks like a ping-pong ball." "Soft shell," Ryan said automatically, then looked surprised at himself for remembering. Clara looked at him. Their mother had taught both of them that. Maya lifted the egg gently and placed it into the bucket, then another and another. The waves reached Luis's boots. "We need to move," he said. "I know," Maya replied, not looking up. Rain soaked through everyone's coats. Sand collapsed into the chamber edges. Clara and Ryan carried empty buckets when asked, then stood back. Noah held marker flags like they were sacred objects. The turtle remained on the porch, silent now, watching. After the first 30 eggs, Maya's movements became faster but never careless. After 50, the water began washing into the nest hole. Luis used his body to block some of the surge while Maya kept lifting eggs. 82, she said. Another wave came. This one hit hard, rushing around their knees. The nest depression began to collapse. Luis cursed. "Now, Maya." "2 more. Maya, 2 more." She reached into the wet sand and pulled one egg free, then another. The chamber flooded. Maya sat back hard, breathing heavily. 84. "Is that all?" Clara asked. Maya looked at the water filling the chamber. "It has to be." They carried the eggs carefully up to a higher section of dune near the protected vegetation line, above the projected storm tide. Luis selected the site, measuring distance, slope, sand temperature, and drainage. Maya prepared a new chamber shaped like the original, carefully matching depth as closely as possible. The eggs went back one by one, gently, silently, as if each held not only a life, but a promise. Noah watched with tears in his eyes. Clara stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder. Ryan stood on her other side, rain running down his face. He was looking at the nest, but Clara knew he was somewhere else too, back in childhood, back beside their mother, back on summer nights when flashlights were covered in red film and their mother's voice carried softly over the sand. "She would have known exactly what to do," Ryan said. Clara swallowed. "She did know. She taught us enough to call the people who know now." Ryan looked at her. For months, every conversation between them had bent toward the house. Sell it, keep it, too expensive, too many memories, too far away, too hard to maintain. Underneath all of it was something neither had said clearly. Their mother was gone, and neither of them knew what to do with the place where she still seemed most alive. Now a turtle had scratched at the door and led them back to the work their mother had loved. Maya finished covering the relocated nest with sand and placed protective screening above it to deter predators. Luis installed markers and recorded coordinates. The tide continued to rise below them, swallowing the original nest site completely. If the turtle had not come to the house, the eggs would have drowned before anyone knew they were there. Only then did Maya turn her attention fully back to the adult turtle. The female had begun moving again, slowly, painfully, toward the steps. "She needs to return to the water," Maya said, "but she's exhausted and the surge is rough. We may need to guide her to a safer entry point." "Can we help?" Noah asked. Maya looked at him carefully. "You can help by standing back and staying quiet." Noah nodded. The turtle descended the porch steps one at a time, front flippers dragging, shell scraping lightly on the wood. Every movement seemed to cost her. When she reached the sand, she paused. Maya and Luis positioned themselves behind and to the sides, not touching unless necessary, creating a calm corridor toward the gentler slope north of the house where waves were less violent. Clara, Ryan, and Noah followed from a distance. The turtle moved toward the ocean. The tide, which had threatened her nest, now reached for her like a road home. At the water's edge, she stopped. A wave washed around her shell. She lifted her head. For one breathless moment, Clara thought she might turn back again. Instead, the turtle pushed forward. The next wave lifted her slightly. Another came. Her flippers moved with more strength now, finding the rhythm they were made for. Slowly, the heavy body that had seemed so awkward on land became graceful. The turtle floated, dipped, then rose beyond the foam. Noah began crying. "She's going," he whispered. The turtle's head surfaced once beyond the break. Then she disappeared into the gray sea. Maya exhaled. "Good luck, old girl." Clara stood in the rain, staring at the water until Ryan gently touched her arm. "She did it," he said. Clara nodded. "So did we," Noah said softly. The story spread through Cape Mariner by lunchtime. A sea turtle had scratched at a beach house door. The tide was coming in. Rescuers found and moved 84 eggs just before the original nest flooded. People called it a miracle, a message, a sign from Clara and Ryan's mother, a reminder that the old Monroe house belonged to the turtles as much as to the family. Clara tried not to encourage the more dramatic versions, but she could not deny what had happened. The turtle had come to the door. That was true. Maya was careful when speaking to local reporters. "We can't say the turtle understood the tide or deliberately sought human help," she said. "What we can say is that unusual animal behavior led to a nest being discovered in time. That's why it matters to report sea turtle activity, protect beaches, reduce artificial lighting, and keep nesting areas undisturbed." Clara appreciated the caution. She also kept hearing the scrape at the door in her memory. Scrape, scrape. Over the next few weeks, the relocated nest became part of the family's life. Maya and the rescue team monitored it regularly, checking for signs of disturbance. Clara stayed at the beach house longer than planned. Ryan came back every weekend with Noah. At first, they told themselves it was to help with repairs. The storm had damaged the lower deck, loosened shingles, and pushed sand under the pilings, but they both knew it was the nest. Noah named the turtle Marina, though Maya gently reminded him that wild turtles did not need names. Noah said, "She can have one just for us." Maya smiled. "Fair enough." Clara began going through their mother's old volunteer notebooks. She found pages of nest counts, hatch dates, tide notes, and sketches of turtle tracks. In one notebook, tucked between pages, was a photograph of Clara and Ryan as children standing beside their mother on the beach, both wearing oversized volunteer shirts. On the back, their mother had written, "Teach them to notice what the world is trying to tell them." Clara cried for 20 minutes when she found it. That evening, she showed Ryan. He read the words and sat down at the kitchen table. I still think selling makes sense, he said quietly. Clara closed her eyes. But, he continued, maybe not yet. She looked at him. Ryan turned the photo over in his hands. Maybe we fix the place first. Use it. Volunteer. Let Noah have some summers here. Clara's throat tightened. You'd do that? I don't want to lose everything that was hers. You said keeping the house was holding on too tightly. Maybe selling too fast is letting go too hard. The old beach house seemed to settle around them, wind humming in the eaves. Clara reached across the table and took his hand. For the first time since the funeral, they did not argue about the house. They made a list of repairs instead. Summer deepened. The relocated nest sat quietly behind its protective screen, marked with flags and signs. Tourists asked about it. Volunteers checked it at dawn and dusk. Noah became fiercely protective of it, reminding strangers not to cross the rope with the authority of a tiny park ranger. Sea turtle nest, he would say. Please respect the boundary. Maya gave him an official volunteer hat after he said it to the mayor. In late August, the nest began showing signs. A slight depression in the sand, tiny cracks, subtle movement beneath the surface. Maya called Clara. It may happen tonight or tomorrow. Clara called Ryan immediately. He arrived with Noah before sunset. They gathered with Maya, Luis, and a small permitted group of volunteers under red-filtered lights. No bright lights, no flash photography, no loud voices. The ocean was calm that night, a deep black mirror under a sky full of stars. The beach house glowed softly behind them, curtains drawn to reduce light toward the shore. They waited and waited. At 11:42 p.m., the sand moved. Noah gripped Clara's hand. A tiny head appeared, then another. Then the nest seemed to come alive. Hatchlings emerged from the sand, dark, small, and impossibly determined. They climbed over one another, rested briefly, then began the ancient journey toward the brightest horizon, the ocean. Volunteers formed a wide corridor, ensuring no crabs, birds, or confused beachgoers interfered. Clara knelt behind the rope with tears streaming silently down her face. They're so small, Ryan whispered. Maya nodded. And they know where to go. One hatchling flipped onto its back near a shell. Noah gasped, but Maya held up a hand. Wait. The hatchling struggled, kicked, and righted itself. Noah exhaled. Good job. One by one, they crossed the sand. The same tide that had nearly drowned them as eggs now carried them into the sea. Clara thought of the mother turtle dragging herself across the porch in the rain. She thought of her mother's notebooks. She thought of all the quiet lives depending on humans to notice without interfering too much, to help without taking over, to protect without possessing. By the end of the emergence, 72 hatchlings had made it to the water. Several eggs had not hatched, which Maya said was normal. Still, 72 tiny turtles entered the ocean because one exhausted mother had come ashore during a storm and scratched at a door. Noah sat down in the sand after the last hatchling disappeared. Do you think Marina knows? Ryan put an arm around him. Probably not. Clara looked at the dark water. Maybe not the way we mean, she said, but she did what she was supposed to do, and so did they. Noah nodded, satisfied enough. The nest excavation happened 3 days later, after the proper waiting period. Maya counted hatched shells, unhatched eggs, and data for the rescue records. Noah watched solemnly. Clara helped record numbers. Ryan carried supplies. When Maya finished, she looked toward the beach house. You know, your mother used to monitor this stretch. Clara smiled sadly. I know. She was the reason half this beach still goes dark during nesting season. She annoyed everyone until they changed their porch lights. Ryan laughed. That sounds like her. She made people notice, Maya said. Clara looked at the house, at the repaired deck, at the door where the turtle had scratched. She still is, Clara said. The Monroe family did not sell the beach house, not that year. Instead, they repaired it slowly. They replaced outdoor lights with turtle-safe amber bulbs. They restored the dune walkway so people would stop cutting across nesting areas. They partnered with the rescue center to use the garage as a seasonal supply station for volunteers. A small sign near the back door read, "For stranded or nesting sea turtles, call Cape Mariner Sea Turtle Rescue." Noah added another handmade sign below it. Also, listen if they knock. Maya laughed when she saw it but did not make him take it down. Years passed. Noah grew taller. Ryan kept coming back. Clara spent more time at the house than anywhere else. The beach changed constantly, as beaches do. Storms carved the dunes and rebuilt them. New nests appeared some summers and none on others. Hatchlings emerged under starlight. Volunteers came and went. The old house weathered salt, wind, grief, laughter, and repair. Sometimes during storms, Clara would wake before dawn and listen. The house still made noises. Beams groaned. Rain tapped. Wind moved through the dunes. But every now and then, when a branch scraped the door or a sand skittered against the porch, Clara remembered that morning and felt again the strange urgency of being called by something without words. The turtle never returned to the door. Maya said that was good. Clara agreed. Still, every nesting season, she watched the beach with care. One night, almost 5 years after the storm, Clara and Noah were doing a volunteer walk under red light when they found fresh turtle tracks near South Dune. A female loggerhead had come ashore and was digging above the high tide line, safely beyond where Marina's nest had flooded years before. Noah, now 15, whispered, "Do you think it's one of Marina's babies?" Clara smiled. They'd be too young. Sea turtles take many years to mature. "I know," Noah said. "I just wanted it to be poetic." Clara laughed softly. "Your grandmother would have liked that." They stood in silence, watching from a respectful distance as the turtle worked under the stars, ancient, patient, determined. When she finished and began her slow return to the sea, Clara felt the same reverence she had felt as a child beside her mother. Noah whispered, "They always know what to do." Clara looked at the turtle tracks glowing faintly in the red light. "Most of the time," she said. "And when they don't, or when our world gets in their way, we'd better be paying attention." Years later, Clara would tell the story to new volunteers during training. She would describe the storm surge, the turtle on the porch, the scratching at the door, the nest flooding, the relocation, and the night 72 hatchlings found the ocean. She always explained the rules. Never disturb nesting turtles, never move eggs without trained authorization, avoid bright lights, fill holes on the beach, remove trash, call professionals. But at the end, she always allowed herself one moment of wonder. "We don't know exactly why she came to the house," Clara would say. "Maybe she was disoriented, maybe she was exhausted, maybe instinct led her along the dune. But because she came, we found the nest before the tide took it. Sometimes rescue begins with not dismissing the strange thing in front of you." Then she would look toward the ocean. The world speaks in tracks, tides, scratches, and silence. Our job is to notice in time. So before we go, remember this. Sometimes a knock at the door is not a person. Sometimes it is not even a sound you expect to matter. Sometimes it is a sea turtle, exhausted from laying her eggs, scraping her flipper against a beach house door while the tide rises behind her. And when Clara opened her eyes to what the turtle was showing her, she did more than save a nest. She saved a piece of her mother's legacy. She saved 72 tiny lives waiting beneath the sand. And she learned that even grief can become a doorway back to purpose when the wild world comes asking to be heard.